Welcome back to day 20 of our chess journey to 1500 ELO on chess.com. It's currently 4 in the morning today as I'm recording this, so please bear with me as I'm going to be battling both the opponent at the board and a severe case of bad hair at the same time. Let's jump on into the game here and see who our opponent's going to be today. It's a person called Winmiat from Myanmar, and they are rated 1292. We will play the Sicilian defense as per usual, and this I think is our first time facing the closed Sicilian defense, which is this knight response here instead of this knight here and opening up the center. I'm realizing quickly here I don't really know what the critical continuation here would be, but I think we'll just play normal developing moves here. And I think we might go ahead and play knight c6 even, which I think is... yeah, it says the traditional line here. I think this is the traditional line in the normal open Sicilian as well. This move, the Grand Prix attack, is one I'm not all that familiar with, however. So let's be sure to not get ourselves into too much trouble here and look at different opportunities and possibilities here. This is basically telling us our opponent seeks to castle queenside here and just launch a massive attack towards our king here. I'm looking at either this move or this move to open up our bishops and control the center and prevent our opponent from pushing those pawns here and restricting our development. I think we might start out with e6. Actually I think d6 might be the move here, because it would allow us to play knight f6, because our opponent can push this pawn and push our knight back. Our opponent plays this move, and I think we'll go on ahead and play our bishop out here, simply intercepting the opponent's bishop. Alternatively, we could ignore this and play it in this way, but I don't see why we would introduce a necessary doubling of our pawns. The opponent captures, and we will go ahead and capture ourselves. And here I think we might look for a fianchetto position, because our bishop is never going to develop on this diagonal, at least. It might if we play this move, but I think this diagonal here seems a lot juicier. This might be a move, however, to play our knight here into a more defensive position. Or it might not even be a matter of being defensive, it's just this might invite some tactical threats from our opponent. But first of all, I think we might look for this move, because I think we want this either way. So our pawn here to g6, and what is our opponent going to play in response? They play their knight to f3. So let's see, I don't see any immediate issues with playing bishop here to g7, so I think we'll go on ahead and do so. And they play their bishop out to d2. I think we'll go on ahead and play e6 here and play it in this way. It also controls a bit more of the center. Here we are basically just playing a lot of normal Sicilian themed moves, and our opponent proceeds to castle kingside, which I am actually very happy with because I tend to buckle under the pressure of opposite side castling and pawn storms like this. It tends to get quite chaotic, so this is not all that bad. Let's go on ahead and try to finish our development here. I'm liking this move e6 a lot now because it kind of kills this pawn push by our opponent as we control this by 2 pawns here. I think it's time to castle. And then after castling, I think we'll look into our next moves here. I'm curious as to whether this is going to be a queenside expansion game or whether we are going to play in the middle here. Let's have a look at this move. Our opponent hits this position here, or they might be looking for this move even. But if they play their knight up here, this move kills that move. So I don't see a lot of threats. They are hitting our knight like this, but if we just move our queen up and kind of develop it, connecting our rooks, we should still defend the knight without this being a pin. There could probably be an argument for opening up the position here by pushing in the center, but this move might invite this, killing our bishop's diagonal here. So I think first of all we might as well just get our queen up here, but let's look quickly at whether we prefer this move or this move. And I think we might just prefer playing... I would have like to say this move, but then we lose our knight. So let's play here. I don't think we want a rook on this file. My thought process is simply because we have a lot of progress. There's a lot of progress to be made here before we have any chances of pushing this pawn. Here we'll go on ahead and play this move. And their knight should be pushed back here. Our opponent's plan here might be playing this move and threatening our pawn here, but then we might even have this king move defending it. I'm looking at moves like this, or we might try to get f5 actually. This would prevent our opponent from playing f5 themselves, and then we could strike in the center as well by capturing their pawn here. I think I like this move, so I think we'll go on ahead and play it after quickly looking at this continuation. It seems we wouldn't lose anything here, and I think opening up the position in this way might be favorable to us. But when I'm looking at it further, it seems like it might lose this knight at the end of the line, so I don't think we need to trade immediately in that position. So we'll go on ahead and see what happens. If they push here, then we might just jump in here with our knight hitting this, and then we might look for this capture again afterwards, in a line where our knight doesn't hang. I think we have to be careful here as well, as we are opening up a lot of, or pushing pawns in front of our king rather. And if we move our bishop, then this pawn is always hanging. Which might mean this might be an interesting move to introduce at some point. What happens here? I don't think this is a move we want as of yet. And I think we mind if they play this. Actually, I don't think we do. I was a bit worried because I was thinking we would have to move our queen, but we still keep our defense of our knight. This, I think, is going to be important, so we can move our bishop. So where does our other rook belong here? I think it might belong on this file, as this is certain to open up in one way or another. They play their king up to h1, avoiding this diagonal. And I think we'll go on ahead and play our rook out here to d8. I was looking at capturing here straight off the bat. And honestly, it's just a pawn for us. It looks like. No, it still is not because of this knight. So how about we do something about the knight? I was considering capturing this knight here, and then we could move our knight into this position and hit this pawn. Alternatively, we could defend our knight, but then we would disconnect our rooks, but it might be a long-term idea of doubling them up though, which I'm liking. So let's play this move. Rook to f7. I think we might expect our opponent to get their rooks into the game as well soon. They might move in like this perhaps, and try to just break apart our king side, but it would introduce weaknesses for them as well here though. I'm kind of happy with how this move went, our push here to f5, as their bishop is currently out of the game here. So they have a much weaker attack than they might have had. And this, I'm realizing, was a blunder by us because we can't capture here. So let's go ahead and bring our king back so we can recapture with our king. It seems to be a first move pretty much, although our opponent might have this move. But I think capturing the rook might be better, as after we slide the queen out of the way, then I think they don't really have a lot of follow-up threats. Let's just pre-move this capture. And then we'll go on ahead and see what our opponent proceeds to do. I think it might be a good idea looking closer at knight moves. And I'm saying so because I'm realizing this isn't quite the first time we've lost a piece to a knight fork. So yeah, let's just go. I think I'll just be looking at it in my free time, trying to, I guess, familiarize myself with the threats that knights pose. I don't think this position is necessarily lost because of this, but it's going to be a bit more difficult playing this from behind. We are in a position again here where if we move our bishop to capture anything, we lose this pawn. But doing so might not be too bad, as we might have this kind of a counter threat into their position, hitting their king. And in some lines we might even be able to trap their queen, I think. Let's have a look at this. I don't think this works just yet. How about this? I'm not really seeing it. We might close up this center here, but I don't think I like this, as it kills this bishop of ours. So which moves do we have here? I want to move this rook into a position. The problem is to decide which position that might be. And we also have this pawn here, which I'm honestly considering pushing and then playing bishop up here and threatening this. This move might be faced with this move. They might respond with the move here, but I think we just capture in either way, and I think we should be fine. Let's remove this weakness here from our position. This pawn here is going to be a bit weaker, but it's going to be difficult for our opponent to target it, because their rooks can't get to it, and their bishop can't get to it, and the knight can't even jump into it from those positions here at least. So here our opponent might just capture, exposing our pawn here on e6. But I don't think that's too bad for us, too bad of a position for us really. And playing this move also reintroduces the threat here of winning a pawn like this. It would, however, open up their bishop, and they might look to double up with their queen here and infiltrate. They play their knight back. So what does this move seek to do? Either it's a move played to open up their bishop here, they want to jump in here, or they want to push a pawn in another position perhaps. I'm not quite sure as to what their idea here might be, but I'm seeing a free pawn, and as they say, pawn is pawn. Now their pawn here is hanging as well. And I think we might be lucky and regain some of our material disadvantage here. If they capture here, then I think this might even be a decent move, because we would expose a lot of weaknesses around our king if we play this move. Bishop takes e5 here. Let's have a look. If this move here is played, then they do have some ideas of potential discovered attacks against our queen. And then, yeah, this is not all that nice because they would threaten taking this pawn here. If we play like this, they still have an idea of a discovered attack, but at the same time they can't take this as of yet, so we have time to defend our pawn, I think. With that reasoning, I think we'll go ahead and play bishop takes e5 and see what our opponent decides to do. It seems they want to force material off the board. This forces a trade. This would be met with this probably. And I don't think we want to trade too many pieces yet, as we are still down material. What happens if we move like this? Then we lose material, which doesn't quite work. And if we move our knight here, then we could probably look at capturing this. But I think we'll do this because this only forces the bishops off the board. And we could have threats like this, this, or this. If they capture, I think we recapture. But then they still have this kind of an idea. I think we still have to capture though. After this knight move to f4. What should we play here? I would have liked for there to be some tactical idea here. Let's see what happens here, for example. If they capture our queen, and we go like this, they would just slide on over. What happens in this continuation? Here we would play like this, and I think I think this is losing either way. So I think we'll go ahead and try to capture some material in return, as our opponent is probably looking to capture our pawn here as well. This move might be the critical move they're looking for, capturing with the rook and e6. But if they capture like this, I think we might be able to capture their knight here, and then their rook would be hanging. They could look to double up perhaps, and we would have to look at what happens afterwards. We might have this rook to e8 to e8 move rather, which I think probably wouldn't be too bad, but their queen might be able to infiltrate us afterwards. They capture with the knight. They threaten our c5 pawn. But here I think we might have this move, trying to pin their knight. What happens if we capture? I don't think we have any tactical ways of dealing with this. Is b6 a move defending our pawn? This here might be a move. Queen takes c2. Which I think we'll play. This introduces another threat into the position, namely moving our knight here and threatening checkmate. So we could have some interesting moves here, threatening something. I'm not quite sure as to what yet, but we do at least have some counterplay looming in our position. So if we played as our opponent here, what might we decide to do? I was looking at this move first, but if we play queen takes d3, they couldn't take our pawn with the rook at least, as we would take their rook. But that might not be an issue for our opponent, however. This might be a continuation though, and if they take this pawn here with either the rook or the knight, then we could probably threaten taking their rook on f1 as well as threatening checkmate. They could look for a queen infiltration as well, going to g5 and h6. And we do have to remember this pawn here on f5 is pinned, so they might even move something to e4 and remaneuver like this. At the very least here we are equal in terms of material. So I'm getting somewhat optimistic of a comeback here. It is awkward, however, that this file, the E file here, is open for our opponent's two rooks, but we will probably just try to find some way of generating more counterplay here. Finally, our opponent is starting to spend some of their time at least, which I'm quite happy seeing. This move is not one I expected at all. Rook takes f5. And I'm curious as to whether we have the time to look at this properly. They threaten capturing here. And if we move on to this file, they would take our queen. But I think we have to play this, and we might play in this corner over here perhaps. What happens after king f6? This would probably be checkmate. This might actually be a first checkmate, which would be an incredible find by our opponent. The alternative is losing our queen. What happens if we play here after this? And if we go here? They would force us to lose our queen. We can't go here. I think this is what I'm noticing might be the best way to save something, but I'm probably overlooking something in this position. I do have to say again though, our opponent played an incredible move just now, and I just have to say kudos to them. This is a first move by us and a checkmate by our opponent. Well played. They played an incredible move there, and I'm happy losing to such a strong opponent. This does mean a loss for us today, however, bringing us back down to 1366 ELO. Let's jump on ahead into the game review and look at the game. Thanks a lot for the game again, Win Myat from Myanmar or Burma. Today is, I think, our lowest accuracy so far with 68.2, and our opponent played with an accuracy of 83.8. Here we had the close to Sicilian for the first time, and I'm happy to see at least our moves were somewhat decent, and we played theory moves this far at least. We were still in theory at this point, and here we even had a slightly better position as black. And I'm quite happy with this because, as I mentioned, I was entirely uncertain as to how to play this position. This was even the critical approach here. We still made a lot of decent moves. So where did we go wrong here? B4 was apparently long overdue in this position, and the computer wanted us to play it several times. We don't lose a lot of evaluation by not playing it though, but it was probably a slightly better approach, looking for a queenside expansion. Here our opponent made a mistake and we found the critical pawn push. So from this point on we should have had a pretty decent position, but here we made a blunder. So let's have a look at what happened here. If they capture with the rook, then we had dx like this. And if they recapture, then g5 would have been a powerful move. And if they played h5, then what? Knight to c6 even. I think this might be a bit above my pay grade, evaluating this as much better than we did, but no, even taking here, I guess, this makes a lot of sense and we would have actually won a clean pawn. We overlooked that, however, and played this king move, which was a horrible blunder as it loses to the knight move here. Our opponent didn't spot it immediately though, but I think we should have considered this possibility. Here we blundered the same thing again, and we gave our opponent an easy way of spotting the move because this is a common tactical idea, forking with a knight while pinning the pawn. We moved back, and here the capturing the pawn was actually even better. If we would have moved our queen here, for example, and taken like this, then I guess our king is probably too exposed. Well, they did go for the more direct approach, getting the immediate material advantage. And here we should have apparently captured. What happens in this position? It's this g5 move again that we seem to miss. It's a bit scary keeping on pushing pawns in front of the king, so it didn't occur to me here. But we might, if we were a stronger player here, it would have probably been looked at least. So it's just things we have to familiarize ourselves with and get into the habit of looking out for in the positions. They play their knight back, we captured here. And I think, considering we lost a rook earlier on, this position is pretty decent. Here we should have apparently captured. And I see the evaluation bar jumped a bit there because this, I think, is difficult to evaluate. I didn't want to trade material here, but it might have been important doing so. This approach at least didn't seem to be quite as good, simply because we forgot that they had this discovery here as well, as we moved in with our queen, and here they captured our pawn. Sorry, let's jump on back, I just misclicked a bit. I'm curious here as to what the best move would be, because apparently this capture was by far the best. And if we capture here, I guess they come in with their rook here, and they could just coordinate with their queen apparently, and this would be a quick checkmate. Here they found their powerful and brilliant rook move and got their first mate. The best moves here would be giving up our queen, but if we did so, we would have lost the game quickly as well. So we went in hoping there was not a checkmate, which seemed to be a mistake, as they did indeed have one. Well, that's our game for today, guys. Thanks a lot for watching, and I hope to see you all tomorrow. Bye bye.